Hello everyone and welcome back to Total Football Talk. So we're going to look at all the latest news coming out of Manchester United, and as always there is no everyone talking and we're hearing from Ben Jacobs, we're hearing about Quenda, we're hearing about all kinds of news. As always, we're going to jump straight into it. Top story: Quenda apparently has agreed personal terms with Manchester United, and this is coming from Ben Jacobs. It's been reported this morning. So Quenda has verbally agreed personal terms with Manchester United. Now, please get your comments in below. Do you think this is a good thing? Are you looking forward to seeing this young, bright prospect that's potentially going to come in and, revolutionise? Maybe it's the left side, maybe it's the right side. Obviously, we've got Dogru who can play on one side. Well, he can play on both. He's played on the right, he's played on the left. Quenda is now going to be another very young player. If we can make this work, where's he going to come in and play? Get your comments in below. Where do you think? Where would you like to see him to play? Would you like to see him play on the left? Would you like to see him play on the right? Would you actually like to see him come? That's the question. Would you actually like to see him come? Because we're talking about how much money it's going to cost to bring him in, and can we afford it? And as I said before, he's a 17-year-old. He is playing at a very high level with Sporting. He has been playing Champions League football. He has been doing very well. But as we all know, playing in the Premier League is a very different story. So, will he be able to cope with the intensity? Will he be able to cope with the pressure? I will talk about a little bit of what Verane has kind of mentioned since he's left the club, because I think this will tie in with all the other young players that we have, and what he talked about, the difference between Real Madrid and Manchester United, was very, very interesting. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. So, what we know about the Quenda deal, the players agreed personal terms. He's verbally agreed personal terms. He's waiting to see if the clubs can pre-agree or wait until the summer. The price that Manchester United are looking for is around the 40 million euros, which is 331.1 million. Sporting wants 60 million euros. There's also a release clause of 100 million euros. So, as I said, how much do you think he is worth? Please comments below if you can. Be great to hear what you guys are thinking out there. Do you think he's worth that money? Obviously, he's got a release clause. They want 60 million euros. Do you think he's worth that? I don't. I think he's a 17-year-old, and I think if we were to pay in and around the 33.1 million mark, whatever it is, 33-ish million, I still think personally that's a little bit too much. A bit like we overpaid slightly for Dogru. I think we paid about 5 million extra on that one. I think we're probably going to have to pay a bit extra on this one. But obviously, this is one of Rubin Amorim's top targets. He will provide service and he will provide width to Manchester United, because that is an area that we've really, really struggled with all season. Really, really struggled with getting sort of provide something for our strikers. Although in the last game against Spurs, even though we lost, we did actually provide some service for a change, which was a nice change in respect that there was balls going into the box. It's just a shame, unfortunately, that we were unable to capitalize on any of them. So, that's where we are with the whole Quenda transfer at the minute. Excuse me. Before I go any further, I would just like to say thank you very much to everyone who's kind of joined me on this journey so far. The last little video was absolutely amazing. We're on the road to 400 views on it, which is unbelievable. Thank you very much for everyone who's been tuning in and kind of watching the video. Absolutely appreciate it. Again, if you can help me out with a wee like on the a wee thumbs up would be brilliant, and a little a little subscription. We're nearly at 50. That's me aim. If I can get to 50 by the end of tomorrow, that would be brilliant. I'd love it, because I'll be off to a flying start, considering I'm only about 5-6 weeks into this whole little process. But okay, thanks very much for listening to me, guys. We'll move on to the next one, and the next one kind of ties in with where Manchester United are financially. And this was Kieran Maguire reacts to the reports that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is cutting its job-cutting costs in Manchester United is in order to prevent the club from going bust. Now, he did a little, Kieran did a little interview with the United View, and it was very, very interesting. It's about 2.5 minutes long. It's out there on Twitter. It's well worth a little watch. Essentially, he breaks down the reasons why Manchester United won't go bust, and the reasons why, even though Ineos and the Glazers are doing what they're doing now, United, he talks about their actual cash flow, in a positive way, how the money that they actually make physically with cash, and how that money is kind of used back in the team. And he explains how the club will not go bust. So to put any fears, out there, where obviously there was a bit of scaremongering about United going bust a few weeks ago. Kane Maguire is a specialist. He's an analyst. He works in a university, but he really specializes in the kind of financial sides of football. Runs a very, very good podcast himself, and he breaks it down very, very clearly from on the United view. On the reasons why Manchester United will not go bust. And as I said, this guy knows his stuff. So if he's coming out reporting that we have got nothing to worry about in terms of going bust, that's a fragment of good news, because my God, we don't have a lot of it at the minute. So it was really nice to hear Kieran talk to the lad's name on the United View. He was on the United Stand for years. It'll lose me. It'll come back to me. But anyway, so that was that. And then to kind of carry on the good news in terms of this, so this was coming out of the MEN. The MEN talked about the PSR deadline boost. So on the subject of the summer transfer window, United are reportedly not at risk of breaching the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules this summer due to their quiet business in January. Now, we all know in January that Manchester United signed Dogru and they signed Aiden Heaven. And they were and obviously the young kid from Paraguay, Leon, even though he has gone back to Paraguay, all those three players have kind of come in the January transfer window. Dogru's the only one who's made an instant impact, as in he's in the first team. Aiden Heaven has kind of been on the fringes. He played for the under 21s just recently there, maybe at the weekend, I think. So they're still baiting him in, still allowing him to find his feet. But, the club have drifted dangerously close to the FFP rules, and it's been widely expected they will have to sell players to improve the side. But according to iPaper, sales won't have to be made before the 30th of June soft transfer deadline to comply with PSR. However, the transfer budget is still going to be tight, with some reports insisting that Rubin Amorim could have around 20 to 30 million pounds to spend on. Now, we've just talked about the Quenda deal and Manchester United and 33.1 million. Obviously, the 20 to 30 million pound they're spend, I believe that they're talking about that if Manchester United don't get into Champions League football through the Europa League, or whether they don't get into the Europa League. I look at this is worst case scenario, that United have that little amount of money to spend, and the reason we're going to have to sell to buy. But I still think we're going to have to sell to buy regardless, because we've still debt to service. And yes, fair play, Anthony's doing well at Real Betis. We may get something there. Marcus Rashford has started off, according to people, being very electric for Aston Villa. Now, I've watched him and he's done well, but I wouldn't go as far as to saying he's been electric. But he's done well. If he can keep pushing on, maybe we could get the 40 million, which would be very, very helpful in regards to the financial situation there. Okay, we'll move on to the next little bit, and this is really, really interesting. So this is Varane's take on Manchester United. So Varane has just, there's quite a lot of quotes coming out at the minute. I'm not going to go through them all. By all means, please go and check them out. They're all over Twitter. Everyone's kind of talking about them. But no, not that one. We will go. So this is what Varane was saying on Manchester United. So the key differences between Manchester United and Real Madrid. At Real Madrid, you can see for years there has been a framework. Players are added, some leave, but there's always a solid foundation. When you recruit young players, talented players, they have to learn before they can play. If you give them time to develop, when I arrived at the age of 18, I had no responsibilities in the dressing room. I was just there to learn. At United, they can recruit a very expensive young player and immediately play him with all the responsibilities in an extremely different league. He's got a huge weight on his shoulders to deal with straight away. Now, this goes back to what I've been kind of talking about for weeks now. This goes for Quenda. This goes for any young player that kind of comes in. Dogru as well. You're not just dealing with the expectations of playing football for a big club. You're dealing with the expectations of the fans. You're dealing with the expectations of the board that need you to be able to get up to speed so quickly. You're not allowed to make mistakes. You make mistakes, and at the minute, unfortunately, the fan base, which is brilliant, maybe not in the ground as much, but surrounding Manchester United, there is a major issue with young players and being thrown into the deep end, trying to help rescue us, and maybe getting a little bit too much flack early doors. Because a young player has to learn. It's like the Euro situation against Southampton. Euro got absolutely the young winger for Southampton on the left side, can't think of his name now. Whatever his name was, very, very good player. Absolutely ripped Euro apart. Now, Euro will learn from that. Euro will take experience from the fact that he was up against someone who kind of showed him a clean pair of heels time and time again. Got to make mistakes. They've got to be allowed to make mistakes. Otherwise, you'll never grow. So I just worry about Manchester United looking at so many young players. Dogru, kid has got a lot of responsibility. As Varane has just said, you cannot, it's very difficult to come into a club at a young age and expect to be Wayne Rooney. Even Wayne Rooney had a lot of, sort of weight on his shoulders, but he had so many experienced players around him to really help him through those early days. And obviously he kind of was on fire too in the early days, which made it a wee bit easier. But and he was from England. These players are coming from all over the world. You're coming from Italy in terms of Dogru. Quenda's coming from Sporting. Massive. I can remember traveling away when I was in America when I was 18 and going away, and my God, I was only away for a couple of months, and I found that the first couple of weeks were unbelievably difficult. The fear and the panic of I'm meant to go away here and work and survive, and Jesus, it was horrible. But it was amazing. I got through the initial early patches that were really, really difficult and had the mental strength to go, right, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to make it work. I got my head down and then ended up having the time of my life. These young kids are coming over from, as I said, Portugal, Italy, Denmark, wherever it is they're coming from. And they're coming over into like a goldfish bowl of pure madness. And they're being told, right, now you've got to cope with all this. With a new manager who's also very young, who's also trying to learn, find his way in the game, trying to manage all the issues at Manchester United. So coming back to Varane's point, players need to be allowed to make mistakes. They need little responsibility at such a young age. Unfortunately, we can't give that opportunity to young players because they're meant to come in and flourish. Like Chido Obi-Martin is another one who's meant to come in and be our saviour. This is wrong. This is why we need a framework. We need a structure in place to bring these young players in and give them the opportunity to thrive and not dive and be sunk by an anchor that's too heavy from at the bottom of the ocean where they just drown. We can't be doing it. Okay, we'll look at the next little bit, and this was Varane's take on Ten Hag. I know this is part of the reason why Varane was out of the squad for a little while. He said, we had a heated discussion. We told each other some home truths, but I didn't play for almost 2 months. I said that I didn't agree with some of the ways of things that he was doing regarding the relationship between him and the other team. I didn't think it was good for them because some of the players were not happy at all. It wasn't good for our relationship with the coach. He told me, okay, I heard what you said, and after that I didn't play. He always was in conflict with some of the leaders of the group, and that's just his way. So obviously we have seen what Varane has had to say. Varane's had quite a bit to say, and it's very, very interesting what he's had to say. And he's obviously an experienced player. He's won everything. He's played obviously Manchester United and Real Madrid, so I think he's an interesting source. He's seen behind the curtain, which we never really get to see. And I think that Ten Hag had his way. He was very, very strict, and maybe Ten Hag at times could have dealt with the situation slightly better. Looking at that, I think obviously you've got to have authority. You've got to let these players know who's boss, and you also have to find a way to adapt and adjust to some of these players as well, because that's just the modern era. Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex, was brilliant at that. Even back in his day, he found a way to adjust himself to these players, but yet keeping the authority that he needed to make sure that the team always was driven forward. Maybe Ten Hag kind of missed the boat a little bit at times from this, and obviously with Varane not playing for 2 months, it just meant that Manchester United were down a player or two for a period of time, so that was a little bit frustrating from a fan's point of view. But Ten Hag was making his stamp and his play, but that was it. Varane's interesting comments, there's tons of them out there, well worth a look. Now, talking about players and having comments, and this kind of all builds into what I was saying before. So Rio Ferdinand on Obi, I'd like to see him play 10 minutes. It's not like we have a striker on the pitch who's scoring goals all the time and we're taking their chances away to score a hat-trick. They need help. So I think 10 minutes is the way forward for Obi-Martin. I think that's the way to help him progress and kind of move into the team without giving him the responsibility of being thrown in there to the wolves and trying to survive in the wild by himself, because, very, very difficult job up there for any striker. We already know that. We talked about service. We talked about the issues of Manchester United have of scoring goals. This kid can't be brought in and be told, you're our saviour. As Varane said, there's a framework at Real Madrid and it works. Bring young players through. You bring him in at the right time, you give them the right sort of encouragement, and you try and protect them. Manchester United cannot throw this guy to the wolves and expect this young striker to be our saviour. It's not fair on him. He's far too young. He needs time. Yes, he needs minutes, but he needs time. We cannot expect us to get this young kid to be our saviour. So Rio was right in terms of, getting minutes, especially right now because we don't have many options. But we definitely don't need to go down the path of, as I said before, and Varane's even said it, coming from someone who knows the insides of two massive football clubs. Got to let these kids make mistakes. He's going to miss chances. If he doesn't, if he doesn't start scoring straight away, God forgive, God, only God knows what the fan base will do. I'm losing my words. My mouth's dry. Okay, guys, that's all your news right now. Please get your comments in below. Thank you very much. Give us a like and subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow. Out.